Welcome to Listen and Learn English. Today we share the story of Arun, a young man who faced failure again and again, yet never let it define him. From leaving his small village with dreams larger than life to arriving in a city where opportunity felt distant, Arun's journey is one of courage, persistence, and quiet transformation. Along the way, he encounters rejection, self-doubt, and moments where giving up seems easier than continuing. But each failure, each setback, teaches him something new about patience, resilience, and the value of effort. This story will take you through the struggles and victories of someone who learns that success is not the absence of failure, but the choice to keep moving forward. Listen closely and let Arun's journey inspire hope, determination, and belief in your own path. Chapter 1. The day everything went wrong. Arun stood outside a small office, holding a thin folder. The interview ended quickly. The door closed behind him, leaving silence that felt heavy, matching the afternoon and his thoughts. He watched people pass without noticing him. Cars moved, conversations continued, and life seemed unchanged. Only Arun felt stuck, as if time moved forward for everyone else while he remained. This was not his first disappointment. He had walked out of many rooms like this before, each rejection quieter than the last, each smile harder to keep, each promise weaker. When he first left his village, everything felt possible. He carried hope like energy inside him. He believed effort would open doors, and that one day he would return home. Now that confidence felt distant, the city was louder than his dreams, and failure spoke more often than hope. He began to wonder if courage was not enough to change. He checked his phone, avoiding messages from home. He did not want to explain another failure. Each unanswered call felt like proof that he was moving farther away from himself. The question slowly grew inside him. What if he was not strong enough? What if the dream he carried for years was too big for someone like him to reach? A cold wind passed through the street, and Arun finally started walking. Each step felt slow, but staying still felt worse. He lowered his head, listening only to his thoughts. With every step, memories returned. He remembered the day he left home, his parents smiling, his bag light, his heart full of certainty. Back then, failure felt distant, almost impossible. As he walked toward his small room, the past and present mixed together. He did not know it yet, but this heavy day would become the beginning of a story. Chapter 2. A dream bigger than his situation. Before the city, Arun's world was small, quiet, and familiar, filled with early mornings, shared meals, and dreams about tomorrow. He grew up watching his parents work long hours, believing effort mattered more than luck, and that patience could change. From his village road, he watched buses leave for distant cities, carrying people who returned later with confidence and futures. Arun imagined himself among them one day, bringing pride home, helping his parents rest, and proving that dreams could grow. When he finally decided to leave, fear existed, but excitement was stronger, filling his thoughts with plans, promises, and possibilities. His parents smiled with pride, hiding their worries, trusting journey would open doors they never had the chance to enter. On the morning he left, his bag felt light, but his heart felt full, carrying hope stronger than uncertainty waiting. The city existed in his imagination as a place where effort led somewhere, where hard work was noticed and rewarded. He believed struggle was temporary, only a short bridge between who he was and the person he wanted to become. In those days, failure felt like something that happened to other people, not to someone willing to try again forward. He promised himself he would not waste the opportunity, repeating that this journey would change everything for him and family. Every goodbye felt emotional but hopeful, as if leaving behind comfort was necessary to discover a version of his life. When the bus finally moved, he looked forward instead of back, certain that courage alone could guide him through waiting. He did not know how difficult the future would become, only that the beginning felt bright and full of promise. And with that hope alive inside him, Arun arrived in the city ready to begin, unaware of the challenges waiting. Chapter 3. The First Failures. At first, the city felt exciting, full of movement, noise, and opportunity waiting around every corner for someone brave enough to try. Arun walked quickly through crowded streets, believing he only needed time before things began to work in his favor. His first job came sooner than expected, and for a short while he felt proud, certain his journey had truly begun. But the work moved faster than he expected, and mistakes followed him quietly, growing into problems he could not ignore anymore. Others seemed confident and experienced, speaking easily, solving problems quickly, while Arun struggled to keep up with the daily pressure. He worked longer hours, hoping effort alone would close the distance between himself and those who seemed naturally capable around him. After only a few months, his manager called him into a small office and gently told him the job was ending. The words were polite, but they stayed heavy in his mind as he packed his things and walked out silently. He told himself it was temporary, just one setback, something everyone experienced before finding the right path forward in life. So he tried again, sending applications, attending interviews, smiling even when rejection arrived again and again without clear explanation. Each failure felt small at first, but together they slowly changed how he saw himself and his chances of succeeding there. The confidence he carried from home began to fade, replaced by quiet questions he could not easily answer anymore inside himself. Maybe effort was not enough. Maybe others simply belonged here more than he did, moving forward while he remained behind unnoticed. With every rejection, hope became harder to protect, and Arun slowly stopped expecting good news when opportunities appeared before him. Without realizing it, he began stepping back from chances, unsure whether trying again would lead anywhere different this time around. Chapter 4. The Weight of Doubt. Slowly, without noticing when it began, Arun stopped trying as often as before, telling himself he was only resting for a while. Opportunities still appeared, but he hesitated, remembering past failures and imagining the same ending before anything even started again. The fear of failing once more felt heavier than the hope of succeeding, and avoiding disappointment began to feel safer than trying. He spent more time alone, watching others move forward while he remained still, measuring his progress against lives that seemed easier. Friends from work spoke about promotions and new plans, and Arun smiled politely, hiding the growing distance he felt inside himself. At night, his phone lit up with calls from home, but he sometimes let them ring, unsure what words he could offer. He did not want to worry his parents or admit that the journey he once described with pride now felt uncertain and fragile. The silence after missed calls stayed longer than expected, filling the room with thoughts he could not easily escape any more alone. Failure was no longer just something that happened outside. It became a quiet voice questioning his ability and worth each day. He began believing that maybe he had already tried his best, and that some people were simply not meant to succeed. Days passed without change, and the future he once imagined slowly lost its shape, becoming something distant and difficult to see. One evening, after another long and quiet day, Arun sat alone at a small tea stall, lost in heavy thoughts and doubt. An older man sitting nearby noticed his silence and asked a simple question, breaking the pattern Arun had been living inside. The question was ordinary, but the moment felt different, as if something small had shifted, opening space for a new thought. Chapter 5. A Small Turning Point. The older man did not speak loudly or offer advice immediately. He simply sat beside Arun, drinking tea, watching the evening pass slowly. After a while, he asked Arun if work had been difficult lately. The question was gentle, without judgment, and Arun nodded quietly. Something about the calm tone made it easier to speak. Arun shared small pieces of his story, careful but honest about failures. The man listened without interrupting, as if he understood more than Arun expected, and then smiled in a quiet, knowing way. He said that failure often feels like weakness, but in truth, it usually means someone tried when others were afraid to begin. Those words stayed in the air. Arun had never thought about failure that way before, and the idea felt strange but comforting. The man explained that every mistake carries information, and that people grow not by avoiding failure, but by understanding it slowly. He did not promise success or easy answers. Instead, he spoke about patience, about continuing even when progress feels invisible for long. The conversation ended simply. The man finished his tea and left, but the thought he shared remained with Arun afterward quietly. Walking home that night, Arun replayed his past failures differently, noticing lessons instead of only moments of embarrassment and disappointment. He remembered skills he had learned, problems he had solved, and ways he had improved without giving himself any credit before. Nothing around him had changed yet. His job situation remained uncertain, and his future still felt unclear and fragile. But inside, something small shifted. The weight of failure felt lighter when it no longer meant the end of possibility for him. For the first time in many months, Arun wondered what might happen if he tried again, not with fear, but with patience instead. Chapter 6. Trying Again. Differently. The next morning did not feel magical or new, but Arun noticed his thoughts were quieter, less heavy than before inside his mind. Instead of searching for immediate success, he decided to focus on small improvements he could control each day without pressure or fear. He woke earlier, organized his time, and paid closer attention to how others worked, listening more than speaking during conversations around him. Before, rejection felt personal, like proof he was not good enough. Now, he tried to understand what each experience could teach instead. When interviews did not go well, he asked himself what he could do better next time, rather than blaming himself or circumstances anymore. Progress was slow, sometimes almost invisible, but the act of continuing gave him a quiet sense of direction again in life. He practiced patience, reminding himself that change rarely arrives suddenly and that strong foundations are built through repeated effort over time. There were still difficult days. Some applications received no response, and doubt occasionally returned, whispering old fears into his thoughts again. But this time, he did not stop. He allowed disappointment to pass without letting it decide his next action or choice forward. Small habits began to change his confidence. He spoke more clearly, prepared more carefully, and carried himself with calmer energy each day. People started noticing his consistency, even if success had not fully arrived yet, and this recognition encouraged him to continue trying patiently. The difference was not in his talent or luck, but in his response. Failure no longer closed doors. It showed where improvement was needed. Step by step, Arun felt himself moving again, not quickly, but steadily, like someone learning how to trust the journey once more. Without realizing it, these small changes were already shaping new opportunities, quietly preparing him for the first signs of progress ahead. Chapter 7: The First Small Success. After months of quiet effort, Arun finally received a call he had been waiting for. A small company offered him a position. It was not his dream role, not the city life he had imagined at the beginning, but it was steady work and a chance to prove himself. Walking into the office on his first day, he felt a mix of relief and pride. The walls were plain, the desk modest, but for the first time in a long while, he felt he belonged somewhere. This stability, though small, felt heavier than any applause he had imagined. The work was simple, and mistakes still happened. But Arun noticed a difference in himself. Instead of panic or shame, he approached each challenge with patience and care, remembering the lessons he had learned from failure. Every small task completed became proof that his effort mattered. For the first time, he saw that consistency, not speed, carried value. Every day he arrived on time, observed, learned, and applied himself. Gradually, tasks that once felt impossible became manageable. Arun began to understand that success often arrives quietly, in small steps, rather than in dramatic moments. He thought back to all the rejection letters, the interviews that went wrong, and the nights spent doubting himself. Each disappointment had taught him resilience, and now, with this small success, he felt the weight of his persistence paying off. Arun realized that growth is rarely immediate. Sometimes it is a slow accumulation of tiny victories, almost invisible until you look back and see how far you have come. The modest job was more than just employment. It was a sign that he was learning to trust himself again. As he left the office that evening, Arun smiled quietly. It was a small win, but to him it felt like a turning point. The journey forward felt possible, and for the first time in months, hope quietly filled the spaces fear once occupied. Chapter 8: Understanding the Meaning of Failure. As the days passed, Arun began to reflect on everything he had endured. The early mornings filled with hope, the interviews that ended in silence, the rejections that once felt like walls closing around him. All of it now seemed like lessons he had overlooked at the time. He remembered the weight of doubt, the nights when fear whispered that he was not capable, and the moments he wanted to stop altogether. Yet each step, even the ones that seemed like mistakes, had shaped him in ways he had not realized. Patience had grown where impatience once lived, humility had replaced arrogance, and persistence had become a quiet habit rather than a desperate act. Arun noticed how his thoughts had shifted. Where he once saw failure as the end, he now recognized it as information. Each setback had taught him something: how to prepare better, how to observe more carefully, and how to keep moving even when results were slow or unseen. The fear that had once frozen him now became a guide, signaling where growth was needed rather than dictating surrender. He also saw how small victories had built his confidence. The consistent effort, the daily improvements, the willingness to keep showing up. These were the real markers of progress. Arun realized that success was not a sudden event, but the natural outcome of lessons learned over time. For the first time, he could view failure not as an enemy, but as a teacher. Every difficult moment, every disappointment had been a step forward, even when it felt like a step backward. This understanding did not remove challenges, but it changed his relationship with them. Arun felt lighter, stronger, and ready to face new opportunities with a calm mind and steady heart. The struggles that once crushed him now fueled a quiet determination, preparing him for the next chapter, helping others who faced similar obstacles. Chapter 9. Helping Others Rise. Arun noticed a young co-worker sitting alone one afternoon, shoulders slumped, staring at the floor as if the weight of the world rested on him. He remembered that feeling all too well, the fear, the doubt, the silent questioning of one's own worth. Instead of ignoring him, Arun approached quietly, offering a simple smile. They began talking, and soon Arun found himself sharing small pieces of his journey. The failures, the long nights of uncertainty, the moments he almost gave up. He did not hide his mistakes. He told them openly, honestly, without shame. The young co-worker listened, eyes wide, nodding as if hearing permission to keep trying, to fail without fear, and to trust the slow process. Arun realized in that moment that what had once weighed him down could now lift someone else. From that day, he began seeking others who seemed discouraged or unsure. Each conversation, each shared story, became a quiet ripple of encouragement across the office. Arun's words were simple, his tone calm, but the effect was noticeable. Others started to see that failure did not define them, that effort and patience carried value far beyond immediate results. Helping others gave Arun something he had not expected, confidence and purpose that felt deeper than personal achievement. His journey, once so narrowly focused on his own survival, began to expand into something larger, a network of hope, resilience, and shared growth. He realized that his failures had not just shaped him, they now had the power to shape others. Isolation turned into connection, self-doubt became understanding, and what had once felt heavy now felt meaningful. For the first time, Arun looked around and saw how far he had come, from the young man frozen by rejection outside the office to someone capable of inspiring courage and patience in others. And in that reflection, he felt a quiet, fulfilling sense of triumph that no single success could have given him. Chapter 10. Failure was never the end. Arun walked past the same small office where months ago he had stood, shoulders heavy, heart full of doubt. The street was the same, the sounds unchanged, yet everything felt different inside him. He remembered that day clearly, the rejection, the silence, the fear that perhaps he would never succeed. Back then, each failure felt like a door closing, each disappointment a proof that he was not enough. The weight of it had pressed on him until even hope seemed fragile. Now, standing in the same place, he saw it differently. Those failures had not been the end. They had been steps along the path, shaping his patience, his understanding, and his strength. Every rejection, every misstep, had taught him resilience, and given him the tools to move forward steadily. Arun realized that success was not a single event, a moment of dramatic triumph. It was quiet, subtle, built through consistency, reflection, and the courage to try again after every fall. The journey itself, with all its struggles, had been the true achievement. He felt a calm confidence settle inside him, a deep understanding that fear and doubt would always appear, but they no longer had the power to stop him. Where once he had seen endings, he now saw lessons, directions, and possibilities. Looking ahead, Arun knew life would continue to challenge him, but the past had proven something essential. Moving forward, no matter how slowly or imperfectly, was the most powerful form of success. With a steady breath he walked on, aware that failure would visit again, but certain it would never define him. He carried hope quietly, without fanfare, knowing that each step, each effort, and each small victory mattered far more than the setbacks he once feared. The journey had changed him, and in that change, he discovered the truth he had been seeking all along. Failure was never the end. It was the beginning of everything that came next. Arun's story reminds us that failure is never final. It is a teacher, a guide, and often the first step toward growth. By reflecting on his mistakes, learning quietly, and showing patience, Arun turned struggle into strength, fear into motivation, and isolation into connection. He discovered that true success does not arrive suddenly or dramatically. It comes from persistence, small improvements, and the courage to try again after setbacks. As you finish listening, remember that each challenge you face, each moment of doubt, is part of your journey. Keep moving forward, step by step, and trust the process. Arun's story shows that even in the darkest moments, hope can grow quietly, leading to transformation. Let his journey inspire you to embrace your failures, learn from them, and continue toward the life you dream of creating.